Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Ryan, he's Mike, it's Eggs. This is Eggs. This is Eggs.
What's eggs?
Eggs is a podcast about all things creative, regardless of what that means to you. From the creativity involved in launching a business, building a brand, crafting an entertainment career, or whatever, we'll talk about the process of growing your eggs from start to finish.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. So you're on the road again. You're in sunny Oregon. What's going on?
I'm down here for a family reunion. It's we're about 25 miles north of Tillamook at a place called Nehalem Bay, and it's it's fun to be on the beach and see the family, but it's been a nightmare getting here and getting everything set up. I had a gig in Seattle on Saturday, and since I'm at a family reunion, I had to bring my dogs with me. So my dogs have been stuck in the car for 3 days with me, and I swear if there's another piece of hair that lands on me, I'm going to kill a dog. But it is what it is. So
Hey, go easy on those poor animals. So I'm sure they're loving the beach too, though.
Oh, they've never seen the ocean, and first time one of them saw it, he just took off and ran straight into it. It was pretty good.
Well, I'm sure
Pretty
that
funny.
it's a divine experience for an animal like that. So I know
Yeah.
that first time my dog, we ever took him out to the lake. We took him out to Bear Lake, and same thing. Yeah, he just freaked out and he ran himself until he couldn't run anymore, and he was done.
That's pretty much what happened. So don't even need to have a ball or anything. They just run all over the place. It's great.
Perfect. Well, and your dogs are pretty high energy anyway, so it's probably not a bad thing for them.
Yeah, they're both Australian Shepherds, so they got a lot of running in them.
Yeah, as opposed to my Dane Lab cross that just loafs all day.
That's pretty much a good description of him. He just kind of hangs out.
Yeah.
So-
No, he's pretty great in that respect, especially given
So-
where we live and everything.
Currently, I'm in the front seat of my car. I have my dogs in the back seat of the car, and I'm sitting in a Motel 6 parking lot stealing internet, recording this.
Well, I will say, maybe it's karma or something, but you are kind of dropping a little bit, and so we'll roll with it. But I suspect that your stolen internet is not the best ever.
Well, hopefully, the way this software works is it records like a local image and then uploads it to the server. And so hopefully the local file that's being recorded won't drop out, and we'll be able to it'll sound good on both ends. Hopefully.
The software never ceases to amaze me.
I
So
know.
if you're listening to the show and it sounds perfectly fine, then you'll know it worked.
Well, last week, if you listened to last week's episode, my vocals, when I was talking and you were talking, kind of if we overlapped, they would cut out. So, and I'm wondering if that's something just my internet speed was slow or something weird, but there's a few times if you're listening to the episode, you can actually hear some dropout on my end. And it's not that I'm a bad audio engineer. It's just the internet connection.
I just suspected that maybe the Zencaster folks maybe preferred me to you or something, and are giving me priority.
You get priority. You're the top dog on the bill.
That's right. Better recognize. So, well, that's cool. Well, yeah, no, I'm super familiar with that part of Oregon. My stepdad used to live in Lincoln City, or had a house in Lincoln City anyway. And so we spent a lot of time not far from there. And, the Oregon coast is great. I mean, the only downer is, the view from my dad's place was great, but it's like they have an ocean, but who cares? Because it's cold.
Yeah, it's so
and
cold.
You can't get in. And, it's not like a San Diego beachfront. It's, it's gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. It's an awesome place, but it's, definitely not exactly swimming climate. At least not for long.
And it was so windy last night. I felt like I was being sandblasted on the beach. Like
Oh, no.
I probably could have had a layer of paint removed off me if I had any.
Are you guys like camping on the beach, or are you up at a campground kind of far away, and then you just drive down to the beach, or what's your setup?
It's within walking distance, but it's you have to go over like a dune, and so once you go over the dune, it's nonstop wind, but on the other side, it's bearable. So, and we're staying in a yurt, which is it's kind of like a glorified tent, but it's more stable and there's beds in there, so it's not as bad. It's
Nice.
okay.
How many of you are there?
It's my dad's family. There's going to be about 150 of us over the
Holy
weekend.
smokes!
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah,
Well, that's cool. I mean, it sounds cool anyway. I mean, I know family reunions are normally a little bit dreaded, but it's a cool experience and cool place and lots of people, and I'm sure you don't see all those folks all that often. So
yeah.
you
No,
know,
it won't be that bad.
yeah,
So
that's
it's
cool.
just it's kind of a you know hard getting here, hard getting everything set up, and now that I'm here,
Yeah,
I'm okay
well,
with
and
it.
for anybody not familiar with driving out there, like getting off of the main freeway to out like Oceanside is really windy, and the forests in Oregon are beautiful, tons of trees and everything, but they make it, I don't know, kind of a difficult drive. And so
Yeah, and you're stuck behind 30 RVs and people that don't know how to drive them, and
yeah, and
you're
I think
going,
the thing I hate the most is like you can't see what's around the corner ahead of you. I experienced this out in Boston too, because the forests out there are so thick, and the driving sort of out in these country roads and not being able to see what's coming kind of bothers me. I don't love that.
yeah, and there's some brilliant people out here trying to ride their bikes on 101. It's like the windiest, you can't see anything, and there's two idiots on bikes trying to ride it, and
Excellent.
just asking to die.
Yeah, like those roads out there aren't narrow enough. You need
Yeah,
to
and
accommodate for cyclists also. Yeah,
whatever.
gotta love it. I
But
mean, I guess people are taking their lives in their own hands. I guess they must really like riding.
I guess just to say they did it.
Yeah, I
So
guess so. Well, and I mean, it is gorgeous. I mean, it would be a cool thing to experience on a bike, but I think if I had people hurtling at me from behind, all the way out to the ocean, I don't know how inspired I would be to do the road trip on the bike.
let alone just doing it in the first place.
Right. So, well, cool. That's awesome. Well, the report from here in Barcelona is it's hot, really humid, but overall pretty good. Did a couple little excursions and things for people who haven't heard in previous episodes, or just as by way of reminder, I'm out here in Barcelona attending a language academy. And as part of the language academy's curriculum, they have different events and activities like literally every day, sometimes more than one per day. And so there's always something to do. And so we've been, coming and going, taking a few different trips with the class and things like that. So I've been seeing parts of Spain that I'm not super familiar with. Last week we went to a place called Tossa del Mar, which is like a beach community up north. We went to another one yesterday, but I can't venture to say the name of it. It's kind of a complicated one for me. So anyway, we went to a second beach up in Barcelona, or north of Barcelona, on the Costa Brava, they call it. And actually, it's coming to me. It's called Calella or Calella de Palafrugell, Palafrugell, something like that.
Sounds
I don't know.
French.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Well, and it's probably, I don't know, I guess it could be Spanish, but I think it's probably Catalan. And Catalan language sounds sometimes a little bit like French, some words do. So
Interesting.
yeah, this particular beach is, same with most of Costa Brava, is Catalan. And so people, again, maybe if you're not that familiar with Spain or the Barcelona area, Barcelona is in a part of Spain called Catalonia. Catalonia sees itself as sort of its own country, even though it's contained inside Spain. There's a faction of people that are Catalan and would like to secede from Spain at some point. And there's sort of two different types of Catalan people. There's, just the standard Catalan, and then there's sort of the independentist Catalan people. who really hate Spain and are trying to get away from Spain. And in these smaller Catalan cities, they're more often independent or independentist.
Sounds like Texas.
Yeah, it is a little bit like our Texas. And so these beach cities are independentist, and so it's a little bit interesting, because the people there are different. But that's why they have Catalan names or whatever, is most of them are in parts of Catalonia that are sort of true to the Catalan thing. So anyway, so it's kind of interesting. I mean, there's a lot of internal politics and struggle going on here in Spain, so it's kind of an interesting place. But as far as the beaches go, the beaches are gorgeous. The people are great. Everything is cool. I actually met a lady whose mother owns a little shop on the beach up here in Palafrugell. And she is, going to maybe help us do a little bit of marketing here in Spain. She works as a translator and for some big companies and stuff. So she thought she might be able to help us get an in somewhere. So it was kind of a good chance meeting. It was funny because it was in her mom's store, just buying like an ice cream and a bottle of water because they're right on the beach and it was really hot. And so I was just buying these couple things, and I whip open my wallet and go to pay the mother. And as I'm getting ready to go, this woman turns to me and goes, "From Idaho, huh?" And so
she saw your driver's license?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I was a little bit surprised. I was like, geez, what did I say that, how did you know that? And she said that she had seen when I flipped open my wallet, she had seen my ID and recognized it from Idaho. And she said that I was actually the third Idahoan she'd seen that day on the beach there, and which is insane because normally these beaches don't see a lot of people from the United States or North America at all. Let alone
Idaho.
Yeah, it's mostly Europeans or Spanish people, and I was the third Idahoan that day, and so anyway, I should be clear for people, I live in Utah. Our office is based in Utah, but I still have an Idaho driver's license. So
that's where we met. So
yeah, so anyway, so that's why
Pocatello. I swear, everyone has some sort of connection to Pocatello. I can be in New York and find someone that knows Pocatello. It's the weirdest thing.
Kevin Bacon of cities.
Pretty much.
Everybody is a few degrees separated. So, but anyway, so that was kind of an interesting experience. Well, anyway, I got talking to her, after this icebreaker about being from Idaho, and sort of, she asked what I did and the type of work I do. I did the same, and, we sort of made this connection. So I left with an email address, and I'm supposed to send her some materials, and she's going to pass them along. So we'll see what happens. But, cool little opportunity, chance meeting, and, maybe something will come from it.
How'd your test go last week?
So, we talked about it a little bit last week on the show, but in the academy I'm at, I had a big exam coming up. Well, big for me anyway. To advance to the next level. So I started the school, basically I tested in as a A2 in level, like, I don't remember what it was, 7 or 8 or 8 or 9 or something. And so I guess it would be written as A2.8 or A2.9 or whatever it is. And there's 12 points in A2 anyway. And so over the last few weeks, I've been working through A2. This is my third week here. And so we had the exam last Thursday that was sort of to determine whether we could move into the B1 or, repeat part of A2. And so after much studying and trying to get up to speed and make sure that I had all my bases covered, I took the exam and I passed it, which was a epic milestone for me.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, B1's not exactly fluent, but it's conversational. It's not a bad place to be. And, B1 to B2 is a pretty long process, and B2 to C1 is really a big process. So, I mean, even though, the highest level you can attain is basically a C2, so B1 doesn't sound that far away, but it's actually quite a bit of learning away from a C2. So, anyway, But I'll keep plugging away. I've only got 2 more weeks here, so I probably won't really change levels again. I'll be a B1, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 by the time I'm done. And which again is not a bad place to be. And I'll try and find a place to continue my education when I get back to the States. So hopefully I can keep going on this and keep improving. Because I am enjoying the time here, and being immersed in Spain, I think is probably doing more for me than I'm going to get out of Salt Lake City. But
really,
but well, in terms of just having Spanish people.
Oh, the language. Okay,
signs are in Spanish. Everything's in Spanish. So I think having that is helpful just in terms of being immersed. But because every store I go into, I have to speak Spanish to place my order or to buy something. Or I had to dip into a pharmacy yesterday and try and explain the medicine I needed and stuff like that. And it's although, and I have a comment about that too. Actually, I was really excited. So I had some medication. I mean, it's nothing fancy. It's just some blood pressure medication. And but I didn't have enough medication to get me through the 5 weeks I was going to be here. So I brought what I had, and I had attempted to renew or to refill before I left the States, but I couldn't do it. And so I came here knowing I was going to run out at some point. And so I went to a pharmacy the other night while I was waiting to meet some people. And I explained to the woman what I needed and the name of the drug and all that stuff. And she just walked to the back. She grabbed me a box of it, gave it to me for about €2.50, and sent me on my merry way. No prescription required in Spain on this particular medication.
Wow.
And it was like a third of the price. I mean, not that I mean it's not real expensive. In the States, but this particular medication's not real expensive. But with insurance, it's about $12 for 30 pills.
And the insurance is probably $300 or $400.
Yeah, I mean, the insurance is definitely bringing it down. Yeah. And so, but here with no insurance or anything, it was about, I mean, if you were translating it into dollars, it's about $3, and for 60 pills. So twice as many, a third the money. I mean, it was really awesome, actually.
That's got to be nice, huh?
Yeah, it was good. It was helpful. I was really happy about it. And so, anyway, back to my exam and everything. So, the exam from A2 to B1 is basically going over everything in sort of the present tense, past tenses, 3 past tenses, and a control form. And so you had 4 or 5 tenses that you needed to have an understanding of, plus a fair amount of vocabulary to work through. And so I mean, it's an accomplishment to have had that much to be able to work through that after just a couple of weeks here in the academy.
Have you noticed a significant difference, or is it still kind of?
I wouldn't say I've noticed any significant change. I mean, people here tell me I'm doing well, and when I'm having conversation with people, they're like, "Oh, cool, good job." Like they didn't realize I spoke so well or that I knew so much or whatever. But it really depends. It's super hit and miss on the subject matter, and because with some topics I have the vocabulary to have a discussion about it, and other topics I don't, and so. I find sometimes it's much easier for me to talk about certain things than other things. So that I'll get ripping and sounding pretty fluent. I'll be speaking quickly and everything depending on what I'm talking about. And then they'll ask me a question that sends me down a path where I have no vocabulary, and all of a sudden I can't speak anymore. So it's got to be wildly confusing to have a conversation with me. So anyway.
Where I lived at in the Philippines, the Samar Leyte, on one side of there's a big bridge. It's the San Juanico Bridge or something like that, but it separates the 2 islands. And on one side of the island, it's called H-Waray, and they speak with a ha. And then on the other side of the island, it's S-Waray. And so instead of an H, it's sa. And so depending on where you're at, it's pretty much the same language, but your conjugations and your, part of it changes, and so
it seems
depending
to me
on
like maybe they ought to They should maybe come together. It
Well, they
seems like
have a
maybe they
national
should.
language.
Oh, okay.
The
I was
national
gonna say.
language is Tagalog, and so all the news and all the stuff like that is in Tagalog. And so I can understand Tagalog fairly well, but I can't speak it. So when I went to Manila or I was visiting like the main areas, um, it's actually quite funny. I was at a hospital for a little while. I was having some surgery done on my toes, and one of the nurses came and asked me a question, and I asked her. I was like, "Pwede ka ba paghubad?" And hubad in Tagalog means to strip, but in I think I'm pretty sure, but in Wadai it's translate. Like, do you have a translator? Is what I was asking, because I didn't know, I couldn't speak Tagalog or whatever. But
Well,
essentially,
you're
I
busy
asked
making medical decisions. I mean, it's important to communicate what's
yeah,
happening.
and so I was trying to like ask for a translator, but I pretty sure I asked the nurse to strip for me.
Nice. Well, did it
Yeah,
work?
no, she laughed,
No, she put you
and
in the
I didn't know
gown.
why.
You had to
Yeah,
strip for her.
pretty much. But anyways, that
The importance of knowing what you're saying.
the
Yeah.
Philippines is weird because, like I said, in one area it's H Wadai, the other area it's S Wadai, and if you go a few miles, further south, you're almost to Cebu, and they speak Cebuano there. And so every little city you go in almost has its own little dialect, and it's just the weirdest thing. Um, so I,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
way too
really,
complicated.
yeah.
I mean, I guess you just learn
But
the dialect that you're using, but still, it's like, come on.
every time that we would move or go to a different area, it'd take a few weeks to kind of figure out, okay, this is how they're doing it, and after a few months, it's not a big deal anymore. But each move was pretty significant. So
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Well, and I think when you're trying to learn a language, it's really important to have an understanding of what it is you're actually trying to do or why you're doing it. I think that helps, if you have a goal in mind. And so, like for me, when I came out here, basically I've got the little office here, and we're trying to improve business. So I sort of had a target in mind, something I was trying to do to be able to communicate. And so, I mean, I guess with your nurse in Manila, you know, it was really important, or you were missing the word that you needed to be able to communicate. And so, I mean, I guess in that case, it would have been important to have some more understanding of Tagalog.
well, and I was in a hospital. The doctors there all speak English. 90% of them, 90% of the people speak English. They learn it from a young age. They teach it in school there. And so it was just a matter of, asking someone else, and they actually spoke English, so it wasn't a big deal. But when you get into the Region 8 and San Marlete and stuff like that, it's not a big city. It's not, you know, there's not as many American tourists. I think I ran into like maybe 3 or 4 Americans the whole time I was there. So that and with the language barrier and the lack of resources to learn, it was interesting to say the least.
One of the things you can do to really up your language game is to find a partner. I've been working with this Italian kid, Francesco, quite a bit, but I also have a big number of Spanish people that I know here, maybe 20 or 30 people that I've met over the years that I can hit up and speak in the language. And it's good when you can find somebody that's sort of can objectively listen to you speak or whatever, and just sort of help work you through it, correct you, things like that. And, so it's good to have a relationship with somebody, a native person or whatever. And so I'm pretty lucky because I'm in a good position where I have, a number of local people I can deal with who can sit down and talk to me. And in fact, a couple nights ago, I went with one of my partner's friends just for coffee. And, but I had a conversation with her for maybe 3 or 4 hours in Spanish. And so having that opportunity was a really big deal for me because, not everybody gets that, for one, but it's also so important, when learning a language, to try and work on conversation. Grammar is a big piece of it. but more than just the grammar, it's really important to be able to communicate your ideas, even if you do it in kind of a funny way or it's not, exactly precise. You can get a lot accomplished by being able to talk about a subject. And for example, I can't remember the exact thing I was talking about, but there was a word or something I was trying to talk about, and I didn't have that word in my vocabulary, but I had enough language around it that I could talk about it enough that that she could understand.
Eventually, she could figure it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not ideal, but, for somebody who's just learning a language, that felt pretty good to me that I was able to sort of find my way around, or tiptoe around a subject to the point where she could actually just go, oh, okay, well, what you mean is this. This is the word that you're missing. So for me, that was really, really good.
Yeah. So I've been avoiding the reason why I was in the Philippines in the first place, and I'll just come out and say it because people probably figure it out. But I was a Mormon missionary.
I thought you were a war criminal. This is
the
first time hearing of this.
Yes, I know. My family was religious, and I went on a mission, did all that stuff. I'm not religious anymore. I don't really follow the same kind of thing. But when I was there, you'll see the guys walking around with a white shirt and tie and the name tag. There's always two of them, and they assign you a companion so you can't get in trouble and you can't do things that you're not supposed to. Well, they assigned me a companion that was from the Philippines that didn't speak English. And so I got there, and I'm stuck with this guy 24/7, and we can't even communicate. Like, I drop pictures on a piece of paper. Like,
well, and that really had to suck in that moment. I mean, I'm sure looking back, it's awesome, but that's, a brutal way to have to learn.
It was so hard to, you don't even. The only thing I had to learn the language was the Book of Mormon, and I had to read it out loud to myself to try and pick up words and try. It was so hard. It was very difficult to just the first 3 or 4 months that I was there, and after you're sitting there, that's why I would talk to kids, because they want to speak in English, and then the kid, I'd be like, okay, he said, apple in English. What's apple in, Warai? And then I'd be like, okay. And the kids were excited to teach me. But my companion, I was just a burden to him. He just kind of, I'd follow him around, and he'd talk to everyone. And it was kind of nice because I didn't really want to talk about religion anyway, so I just played dumb and let my companion do all that stuff. And then, I stuck it out for the full 2 years and did it just because, what else am I going to do? And, it was a great experience. I wish it was on different terms where, all the religious bullshit wasn't part of it. But overall, it was fun to spend a few years in the Philippines and to learn another language, just to say that I did. But having the companion in that instance, I think 90% of the time he was speaking Tagalog anyway, so I didn't know if I was hearing Tagalog, Waray, or Cebuano. And so it was a complete nightmare just to learn the language. But by the end of the 2 years that I was there, I was fluent. I could, it took probably 7-8 months before I actually got to the point that I felt fluent. And I think the deciding factor for me was, when I started dreaming in another language, I kind of was like, oh, I must be, doing something.
Yeah, I think that's a milestone that a lot of people use as sort of, I must have finally arrived when, I have a dream in whatever the language you're trying to learn is. I've had a couple in Spanish at this point, and I'm much better in my dreams in Spanish than I am in real life. But
did it freak you out when you woke up and you're like, oh, yeah, crap?
Well, actually, I was really excited to report to my partner Anna and everybody, because it was, when she was living in the States, she had her first English dream, and it was a really big deal to her. And so it was exciting for me to be able to go, oh, hey, I've had my first Spanish one now. And so it was kind of a fun thing. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I
no, it was
don't
weird
know.
though. It was a dream.
Having
I
a
was
part.
with all the soccer players, all the Real Salt Lake soccer players, and and I was just
And
hanging
just
out with a
chatting
couple of
in
those dudes and
Spanish?
just rapping and stuff. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
That's cool.
Weird dream.
Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, having a partner is super critical, just to have someone to kind of talk to and kind of discuss things with, and go over pronunciation and all that stuff. Like I said, the first guy I was with wasn't that great. The second guy that I was stuck with was better. At least he tried to kind of help a little bit. But, I think if I was there with a friend and we were having fun and trying to, spend time learning the language instead of trying to convert people to a religion, then I think I would have picked it up quicker and I would have enjoyed it more.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure though. I mean, even given the situation you had, I'm sure your level advanced a lot, more quickly because you were put in a situation where you had to work. You were put in a situation where you were with somebody that didn't speak English, and you're forced to work. I run into problems with Anna all the time because she's trying to maintain her English level, but unfortunately, if she's not talking to me, she's not talking in English.
Yeah.
Basically, none of her friends really speak it. Her family doesn't speak it at all. Well, her sister does. Her sister actually just got her B1, I think, or B2 in English. And so, but she, so when we're together, or like when we're together here working, it's almost always in English. And so, I'm not getting the advantages of being able to work with her in Spanish, which of course she would do. But it's also easier for me to talk in English. So I'm lazy and I talk in English.
Well, it's gotta be nice though too, because the school seems to be pairing you off with a bunch of people and sending you on.
Although
trips.
I would say it's funny. I just found out about a little scam that the young kids are running here. Like I'm kind of old for this school. There's a few people around my age or older than me, but in general, most of the people are pretty young. Early 20s, and but they're kind of, they chose Barcelona because it's a place to party. They didn't really come to school because they're dying to go to school. And so what these kids are doing, they're running this scam on their parents, which kind of cracks me up. But they basically sign up for, let's say, 6 weeks of school. And the policy of the school is that if you give them some notice, they'll refund you for any time you're not going to go. So what these kids are doing is they'll sign up for 6 weeks. They'll go for like 4 or 4.5 or whatever. Then they'll get a refund on the last week and a half, and then take that money and go to like Ibiza and party for the weekend, or they'll go to the beach and party for a week or whatever it is. Travel, do some sightseeing, but party or whatever. So they're basically, going on a paid vacation, just not letting their parents know about it.
Well, that's actually funny. That's hilarious.
So anyway, yeah, it's kind of a funny thing because they just are, I guess it's, for me, it seems crazy for the school to give these kids their money back, but apparently it's the way it works. So
weird.
It's been kind of funny. So, but it's funny. One of the things that's been the hardest as we've been going though is, we start to pal up with people and then they leave. And so we had a kid from Montenegro hanging out with us for a little while. And he just left last week. And so, and then me and one of the Italian girls are done next week. One of the other Italian girls is done this week. And then, so it's like each week we're having farewell dinners and stuff, on Fridays. Because our little group, that's been together basically the whole time, is starting to fall apart because everybody's leaving. So it's been an interesting thing, because we become friends pretty quickly, and then it's okay. Well, I'm out. So see ya. So, and I guess it's the nature of doing school, in this kind of place.
I got my party time in. I'll see you later.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, and that's exactly what most of them are doing. So, and for me, I'm trying really hard, but because I'm learning and working, I come home after school and I work all afternoon. But a lot of these guys, they go to the beach and then they go to the club and then they go do whatever. And it doesn't matter if it's Tuesday night or Friday night. They're going out, they're getting hammered. I mean, most of them are late or don't show up at all to like the morning sessions and stuff because they're just hungover or whatever. I don't know. It's I don't know. Maybe I'm just too old, so I don't know.
Part of growing up.
Yeah, I guess so.
You're actually going to learn the language.
Yeah, I know, right? Can you imagine? So,
Yeah.
but circling back around to, this idea of having partners, it's not always possible for everyone to have a partner. And so, and even though this sounds ridiculous, this is a recommendation from Babbel. And Babbel is one of these websites, a big name in language learning. But they suggest that you talk to yourself in another language, which seems insane, and you'll no doubt be reported. But if you're maybe in the confines of your room or bathroom or something, sit and talk to yourself in the language and sort of keep the words that you've been working on fresh in your brain, and it will sort of take the spot of a partner. Now, of course, you're not getting corrected, you're not really building, but you can continue to reinforce those connections in your mind with the words or whatever it is you've been working on.
Well, it's kind of like, I recommended that you read out loud to yourself because you're kind of teaching your mouth to, say the words. And for me, I can't roll my R's to save my life. But like just reading out loud and actually vocalizing it, I think it has some sort of, direct correlation to your brain as well. Just the fact that you've said it out loud multiple times, and if you can read and go through like a whole page just out loud and do that, I think it helps. It honestly does. And
well, I think it's like with most learning, if you can sort of utilize as many senses as possible, it can sort of help make things a little more solid in your brain quicker. So like you're saying, if you're reading it, so you're seeing it, you're hearing it because you're saying it, you're speaking it, like the more sort of senses you can employ in conversation, the easier it is to make those connections in your mind. And, so I think that, speaking to yourself, speaking with a partner, reading out loud, any of those occasions where you're exercising vocabulary, you're hearing it, you're seeing it on the written page in this case, I think can really do a lot to sort of keep it or to reinforce those connections. And I think, another thing you can do at the same time is if you sort of keep the conversation relevant, if you sort of keep it at your level, or, you're reading information that is relevant to what it is you're trying to learn. So for example, as I'm doing, marketing and advertising work here, one of the things that's important for me to do is build a vocabulary, a dictionary, I guess, of words that are applicable to my field of work, so that I can, have the vocabulary I need to speak. The grammar side is learning the conjugation and all that other stuff. But without the words, it's difficult to get an idea across, especially when you're speaking about a specific topic. So in my case, I might choose to find a marketing book or an advertising book versus, maybe a sci-fi novel or something in Spanish, just for that reason, so I can start developing the vocabulary of a person who works in my field versus just general Spanish or whatever. Now, I think it's probably all valuable, so you can read whatever you can get your hands on. But I do think, if you can keep your subject relevant, not only will that help keep you motivated because it's, a subject you're interested in, it will also help you achieve whatever end you were, sort of back to what we were saying earlier about, start with a goal in mind or have an understanding why you're trying to learn the language. For me, it was work, so it makes sense to learn work vocabulary. So,
yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I want to be able to have fun. I want to be able to order a mojito. I want to, do all that stuff too, but that will all come.
Well, just in the, I'm sure there's a whole vocabulary, a sub-vocabulary that's in that industry in particular that you wouldn't pick up any other way. So,
yeah, well, and on the subject of a sub-vocabulary too, I mean, my God, there's so much, especially, I mean, like Anna, my partner, is 10 years younger than me. And so is her circle of friends, So when I hang out with those guys, I actually do run into some problems where they're using, some slang and street language, talking like 20-year-olds, or well, I guess 27-year-olds. And so they are
It's kind of
using a
like
lot of
trying to
language.
decipher a text message from your kids.
Yeah, well, it's language that I'm not going to pick up in a book or someplace. You pick it up from talking to those guys. Like that's how you learn it. And so I find I have a really hard time keeping up with them if I don't initiate a conversation, or if I'm not actively involved in the conversation, but just trying to listen or, catch them midstream or whatever. I find that I have a really hard time keeping with them. They don't really make any effort to sort of lower their level to my level. They just sort of speak,
which is a good thing, actually.
Yeah, they just sort of include me in their group and accept the fact that I don't understand everything they're saying.
Well, yeah, if they tried to lower themselves to your level, they'd be doing you a hindrance, because granted, the first few months I was over there, I was dealing with a guy that didn't even care I was there, but it forced me to actually pick up on the things, like I'd figure out different ways. But if he would have just if he knew English and would kind of just talk to me in English all the time, it wouldn't help me out at all. So it's probably a good thing that they're, just having their own conversations and allowing you to be a part of it, because you can hear how they're actually talking too. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So moving on, I wanted to talk about this thing. This is something you've brought up before, and I actually have employed to some degree. This is also it's another little note from that same group, from the Babbel people. But they've got a suggestion that, act like a child. And, it's not about throwing a fit or any of that kind of stuff, but it's by being able to make mistakes and, learn from them, because as an adult, there's often pressure to, get everything just right, or, and I know I do this all the time. Sometimes I'll just stay quiet because I'm not sure I can say the right thing or whatever. And so there's this.
God, I do that in English.
yeah, no, I'm the same, but but it also, I'm even more or even less confident in Spanish. So it's, pretty normal for me to just, I'll keep listening, but I may not say what I'm thinking at any given moment for that reason. And so in this little comment by the Babbel folks, basically they're trying to say, go out there, be a kid, make mistakes, scuff your knee, and, speak as the children speak, talk to them, learn what you can from them. And, I happen to have a little bit of an affinity for listening to little kids speak in Spanish. I don't know why, but I love it. And, it's just the cutest damn thing. And, but, if you're listening to kids speak, they're, speaking at your level or lower, you can pick up a little bit of what they're saying. It's like the example you used of the kid asking you for an apple in English, but you can turn back around and ask him in Tagalog or whatever, or in Spanish, what it is they're saying. And so I think there's a lot to be gained from, modeling yourself after the behavior of a child and being willing to fail and being willing to, fall and fail and get hurt, because, that's a big part of the learning process. You're not going to be an ace. You're not going to get it right the first time.
Oh yeah, it'll take you. I mean, you could live there for a year and you'd still be finding stuff that you didn't know. I think if you were to stay there for like a year, by the end of the year, you'd be very fluent.
I think that seems like a great idea, but I need you to bring that up with my wife.
Good luck with that.
No. You talk to her. Do it while I'm here, though. I don't want to come home and deal with that.
Yeah, good luck.
So anyway, as you're, continuing in language learning, as we were talking about, trying to keep the topic relevant or, try and learn the vocabulary that suits what you want to do. Part of that whole experience, too, is leaving your comfort bubble, getting into subjects that you're not that familiar with and doing your best to explain them so that you can, try and expand what you do. It's the same thing you do in English or whatever. If you're in university, you're trying to get outside of your comfort zone, or if you have anxiety, talking to people, meeting people at clubs or bars or whatever, and you're having trouble or anxiety, you need to get out of your comfort bubble, and it almost always works for the best. There might be that occasional, dismissal that bums you out or whatever, but in general, it's probably going to end up being a positive experience. And so the same in language learning. is that it's really important to try and get out of your comfort bubble. An example of this, or something that I do all the time, is there's a few like little phrases or little things that I've picked up in Spanish that I just use all the time. I just beat them into the ground because there are things that I'm comfortable with and that I know well. And so there's little phrases that I'll use all the time. And so by reinforcing or by saying everything the same way over and over and over and over again, it's not really helping me grow my level at all. It's sort of keeping me in the same place. Yeah, it's making me really good at saying those phrases, but it's not helping me move on. And so,
well, that conversation that you were that conversation you were having with your friend the other day, when you were kind of able to allude to a word and she was able to figure it out, I guarantee you probably still have that word just right at the top of your head because it took you a half hour to figure out what that word was.
Right. Well, and yeah, I had all the pieces and parts to build that concept, but by actually getting the word at the end, it's like, I don't know, like Legos or something, I built and I built and I built until we arrived at that concept. And so, but that was definitely outside of my comfort zone. That was me using the words I was comfortable with to get outside of my box. And so I think that's, a good little technique too.
So a technique that I kind of implemented that I wasn't taught the technique in language learning, but I was taught it for just memorization in general. And it's one of my teachers was telling me about it back in high school. It's called body files. It's like you create filing cabinets with your body parts, like your thumb is, language, your arm is whatever. Like you store things in filing cabinets within your body. So when you're trying to recall something, if that thing, if you have something, okay, language is in my thumb, it kind of isolates that part of your brain and it allows your brain to kind of like use it as a reference point, like an index. And it actually helps really well. It did back when I was trying to memorize 1,000 words or whatever, and I would recommend doing that or just having some sort of you got your note cards, you got your other things, but if you use body files, is what he called it, you always have them there handy, and it's just a point of reference. Oh, my kneecap is this, or my hand is this, and it just it stimulates your brain to pull stuff out easier instead of just getting stuck in a having brain farts all the time. It allows you to kind
I
of
think
move
that's
past
really
it.
Yeah, I think that's really smart, and maybe it's something we could revisit at a later time. Spend a little more time talking about memorization.
I know there's articles on it. I'll see if I can find the one that he showed me initially, but it actually helped out a lot back when I was trying to learn what I because I would do that. I would just kind of put stuff in different sections and it helped. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice. And, I think could be, obviously memorization is a big part of language learning, but it's also helpful with, whatever else you're doing. Just a couple final points, we've sort of been alluding to this, but, it's really important to listen to people. And I know a lot of times, not just in language learning, but I think most people see themselves as great listeners, but most of us aren't. A lot of people will hear what's happening, but they're not really listening, or maybe they're multitasking.
Someone forgot to shut their phone off.
Oh, that noise came through? Other noises don't come through. I thought I could get away with that one.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, yeah, no, I was being FaceTimed on my laptop. But anyway, as I was saying, people will often, not be listening all that closely when a person is speaking. They'll be, dinking around on their phone or whatever. And it's easy to do that when it's maybe in your native language. It's easy to sort of just, hear a few beats and understand what was being said, where you didn't really need to focus with extreme detail. But when you're learning another language, it doesn't work that way. It's really important to focus on what is being said and to try and understand. And this is something that I'm really struggling with still, as I'm proceeding in my language learning. They do a lot of audio, testing where we listen to a song, for example, and we have to try and pick out the phrases in the song, and different things like that. And it's a difficult skill for me, for sure, and hard to stay focused.
That's overall, that's a great, life skill to have in general, just to be a good listener. Yeah, I think it's something that's kind of even going by the wayside in general, because everyone's so tied up in their phones and text messages, do everything short as possible. Just even having a good conversation with people these days is really hard. And, it's something I actually value. I like sitting down and talking with people and figuring out, like what's going on in their lives and actually caring. Most people these days, like they'll talk with you, but they don't know how to actually listen and how to actually, be a good friend. You know what I mean? It's weird.
Oh, what'd you say? Did you say something? Sorry.
Yeah. Or they'll listen with lip service. They'll be there, but they don't really. It's almost like you'll be talking to them, but they'll text on the phone at the same time, and you're like, "Really, dude? Okay, yeah. Whatever."
Well, and I mean, I'm definitely guilty of having done that. I do make a concerted effort not to. It's hard if I'm in the middle of a work day or whatever. I'm trying to get stuff done and have conversations, but a big part of the way I've been trying to change myself and some of the positive things I've been trying to take from Spain, for example, is stuff like that, where you really just spend time listening. I know, like with a lot of my friends, I don't get like real deep with a lot of people, and I think part of that is that I'm not asking the right questions, or I'm not engaged enough, or whatever, so I have a lot of top level conversations, whatever. And it's not like I need to know everyone's dirt. I just mean, I'm not necessarily getting into conversations that are all that heavy all that often with people I know. And I think
that's true.
Big part of that is because I don't hone in on listening very well, or I'm not coming back with good engaged questions, And so it's a skill.
There's nothing more annoying than having a conversation with someone and realizing the last 3 minutes of what you said they don't even know, and it really kind of just it makes me stop talking and not even care about the conversation anymore, and I kind of just wrap it up and leave. I have a few friends in particular that they'll do that, and it's like, okay, whatever. Why'd I even stop by? So, but
right. Well, and everybody's so connected to their phones and everything nowadays. I mean, it really is a skill that's kind of gone by the wayside a little bit. And and like I say, I mean, probably as guilty as anybody about being on my phone every minute or whatever, because I feel compelled to be busy all the time. But I do make a concerted effort to stop doing that sometimes.
And I'm not saying that like you in particular or anyone in particular. It's just super frustrating when you're there to visit or to actually see that person. They can't even focus for 2 minutes. So I think that like it's active listening would be a way to describe it. Like you're actually paying attention to the body language. You're actually paying attention to what they're saying and picking up on the little details. And when you're trying to learn a language in particular, body language is huge. I mean, like it's part of listening. It's you can tell their mood. You can tell a ton of different things. In the Philippines, they point with their lips, like instead of pointing with their hands. Like if you're saying over the L, they'll point with their lips, and it's like like almost like they blew a kiss at you, but really they're pointing. Yeah, it's insane. And I mean, the first few weeks I was there, I was like, what the hell are these guys doing? But by the end of the time I was there, I was doing it too, and so it's kind of, I don't know. I just think active listening is critical. And
no, it really is. I mean, it's definitely just a life skill in general, not even necessarily just pertaining to language learning. I mean, being able to actively learn or actively listen while you're studying a language, of course, is going to help you. But I think it's also just general good advice.
Yeah. So
So
sorry, tangent. I have.
no, it's all related. Well, and that's why I thought it was important to have this conversation. I mean, of course, I'm in the midst of learning a language right now, and really putting a lot of focus on it. But I know that you had these experiences too. I know that having worked on a language in the past, I know that you had a lot of relevant information. So, I mean, I don't mind the tangents because, for me, all these subjects and all these little offshoots are all related to the subject of language learning.
Sure.
I mean, and in the spirit of listening, one thing, and I always have to declare this one, which is maybe weird, but is to not just listen to people talk, but actually watch them. And, especially in a foreign country. And, it's funny that you mentioned the lip thing, pointing with their lips. As people are speaking in different languages, and, it makes for different demands on your tongue, your lips, your throat, everything. And learning how to pronounce, is not just a mental thing. I mean, it's actually a physical thing as well. And so I think, one thing you can really do is, while you're focused and listening, also pay attention to the movement of their mouths. And I know I catch myself sometimes staring at a person's mouth. And so a lot of times I will declare,
They probably
especially
think you're some creepy dude.
well, yeah. So normally I'll declare, if you catch me staring at your mouth, this is why. I'm trying to. It helps me in listening to watch their mouth move. And so, although it admittedly is probably a little weird looking, but I do think that it's a good skill and sort of an extension of good listening. Really just watching them. So, but I guess really
every little thing helps. It's weird how. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you kind of cut out for a second. Yeah. Anyways, little things like that, and anything that you think helps you, do it. Because it's your environment. It's your learning, pattern or whatever you.
And yeah, I mean, and that's a great point. There is no A to B relationship here. I mean, we all learn in different ways. When I came into this academy, I had been learning Spanish from assorted professors and online over Skype and using the Duolingo app and a handful of other iPhone apps. So I've been getting feedback and information and ideas and language, words and things from a gazillion different sources. And so when I came in, I tested, at the level I tested at with almost no real formal Spanish training. But, I jumped past a lot of people, because with the A level, there's an A0 also. So there's A0, A1, A2. And so I got almost to B1, right to the end of A2, just with what I'd picked up from iPhone apps, texting with my friends, things like that in Spanish. And so, anyway, I think really whatever your channel is, however you're doing your learning is not really relevant. We're trying to share some pointers here or things that have worked for us, but may not necessarily work for everyone. So, but yeah. I think finally, and maybe, just to sort of, finish up this topic, I think more than anything is just really diving in and getting into the subject. If you want to learn language, fine, but commit to it. And, like I was saying with the people who are coming out here and partying and, their whole thing, they're not fully committed to learning a language. Yeah, they want to learn a language, and sure, they'll figure out how to order, a rum and Coke or something. But but they're not necessarily committed to being fluent. They're not being serious about their education. And so I think it's important with language learning when you're in, go all in, really make an effort, because I think you can actually learn at least, basic tenets of the language rather quickly if you really are focused and work really hard. My problem is I was a little bit of a victim of my own laziness in that I worked really hard for a while. I achieved enough of a level where I could have some conversations, and then I sort of slowed down. And so, that was probably not the best thing to do. But
well, it's super hard to, especially when you're stateside, trying to learn, Spanish. It's not like you're going to go to a Mexican restaurant and hit up the waiter and try and have a conversation.
But I could.
Well, yeah, you could, but I mean, I guess whatever. I wouldn't.
Right. Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. So, but yeah, no, I see your point. Or, I mean, the point is, yeah, I mean, obviously in the States, I mean, here everyone speaks Spanish, but I mean, in the States, while there are a lot of Spanish speakers, I may not encounter one every day. And so, I certainly don't have as much opportunity to practice. And, and it's funny, I've had this conversation with a few people here. When you're from Europe or you're living in France, you need to know some Spanish, you need to know some German, you need to know, French, you need to, have some Italian, maybe, all, because you're surrounded by all these different countries, and each country is so small that, you don't have to go very far before people are speaking another language. And so it's important to know languages, So a lot of these guys, they're here, the people in my class, they're here learning Spanish now, but they've got 3 or 4 other languages. Like there's
and you've been pretty good.
Class.
You've been pretty good too about. I mean, your kids are in Spanish immersion classes in school, so you're starting them young to learn Spanish.
Yeah, and they're doing so good.
Yeah, Ethan's great. Like it's funny to hear him talk every now and then. But my sister actually, her husband speaks Spanish, and what they did was. He speaks to her kids in Spanish, and she speaks to him in English, and so they're getting the best of both worlds too.
Yeah,
so
we have a French friend, and he and his wife are doing the same thing with their kids. So that he speaks only in French to with the kids, and the kids speak French to him, and then in English to mom. And so yeah, I mean and when those kids are a little older, I mean what a great deal, to have all those languages and be able to work in it. I mean it's really cool. So, but anyway, moral of the story, if you're going to get started on a language, whatever your reason, make sure, focus, just like you would on any of your eggs. If this egg is language learning, then, nurture it, own it. That's your egg. So sit on it and make it grow.
Exactly.
So anyway, with that, let's wrap this baby up. Just reminders, check out the Spotify playlist. If you get a minute, you can just go to our website and click the link. If you want to learn anything about me or my company, R2 Media Group, in Salt Lake City or here in Spain, it's r2mg.com, at r2mg on Twitter, or at R2 Media Group on Instagram.
You can find me at djontic.com. That's ONTIC, and all of my links are there. You can find the podcast at eggscast.com.
Yep, and follow us on Eggs Show at Twitter or on Twitter and Instagram.
Yep, and so, I think that's it.
Yep, it's another one in the can. We apologize for any technical issues or little glitches along the way, and sorry for all the that didn't work banter.
Yeah.
So hopefully it wasn't too bad or too distracting. Unfortunately, this is the nature of recording a show on opposite sides of the planet from a campground in the middle of nowhere and in sunny Barcelona. So anyway,
hopefully it's not too bad.
Yeah. So, well, although I hope there's enough problems in it to warrant this apology. So because if
it's all smooth and clear and we're apologizing
for nothing. So anyway, all right. Well, on that note, let's call it a wrap. So everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
All right, later.